You're a Taurus. And people think that means you're calm, chill, stable, that you're the one who never panics, never breaks, never moves unless it's necessary. They look at you like you're solid, reliable, the rock. And to some extent, they're right. You are. You've learned how to show up consistently even when your world's falling apart. You've learned how to keep your face straight, your voice even, and your emotions tucked just deep enough so they don't mess with the vibe. But what they don't realize, what almost nobody ever sees, is how heavy it is to be the one holding everything still. Because Taurus isn't simple. You're not just grounded, you're guarded. You're sensitive in ways you rarely talk about. You feel things deeply but slowly. Your emotions don't come and go. They sit. They root themselves inside you. They grow over time, quietly. And that's why it hurts so much more when something goes wrong. You don't react fast. You don't explode. You absorb. You hold. You try to make sense of the chaos without letting it disrupt your internal rhythm. But the truth is, it does disrupt you. It just takes a while to show. That's the part nobody gets. People think you're stubborn, that you're cold, that you don't care, but they don't realize you've just been through too much to let your peace get disturbed by every passing storm. You've learned to protect yourself through patience, through silence, through control. And that control isn't about ego. It's about safety. Because at some point in your life, usually early on, you learned that stability wasn't guaranteed, that people leave, that things fall apart, that love isn't always consistent, and that realization changed you. It made you crave comfort more than freedom, predictability more than passion, peace more than risk. You learned to build routines that made you feel safe. You surrounded yourself with things you could control: work, food, music, space, people you trust. And when life pushes you too far outside of that, you either shut down or quietly remove yourself before anyone notices the shift. You don't like change, not because you can't handle it, but because you've already had to. Because you've lived through the rug being pulled, and you never want to feel that ungrounded again. You need time to adjust, time to prepare, time to process. And people who rush you, push you, or expect you to move on their schedule, they rarely stay in your life for long. But that doesn't mean you're cold, or slow, or disconnected. It means you feel everything in your own rhythm. And your silence isn't absence. It's processing. It's protection. It's you asking yourself, can I trust this moment? Can I trust them with my energy? And if the answer isn't clear, you don't move. You don't commit. You don't speak. You just wait. Because for Taurus, safety is sacred. Not just physical safety, emotional safety. The kind where you don't have to over-explain, where you don't have to wonder if someone's going to switch up, where your calm isn't taken for granted, and your consistency isn't mistaken for lack of depth. And what people don't always realize is that even when you're still, your mind is active, your heart is alert, you're paying attention to everything. Who stayed? Who pulled back? Who broke their word? You remember it all. You don't forget. And if the energy shifts too many times, you don't explode, you just leave. Not always physically, but emotionally. You detach, quietly, fully. That's how you've survived. By learning to move slowly but permanently. You don't go back. Once you've decided it's not safe, it's not real, or it's not worth your effort anymore, you shut the door. And no matter how chill you seem about it, you felt everything before you made that decision. You just didn't let anyone see how much. Because you're not here to perform your pain. You're not here to beg people to understand you. You're here to protect your peace, your process, your body, your energy. And if someone doesn't respect that, they don't get access to the version of you that stays. Let's talk about your flaw. Because even though you move slow, even though you're calm, even though you seem like you've got it all together, you carry emotional weight like it's your job. You absorb people. You give loyalty before it's earned. You stay in situations long after your spirit has checked out, because you hate starting over, and part of you still believes that maybe, just maybe, this time it'll settle. This time it'll feel safe again. This time it'll work. Taurus doesn't fall quickly, but once you do, you attach, you invest, you give quietly but deeply. You make space, you adjust, you anchor, and most people don't realize how much you've changed just to keep things peaceful. Because you don't show it. You don't announce every compromise. You just adapt. Until one day you realize you've been bending so much that you're the only one holding it all together. You call it loyalty. And it is. But sometimes it's also avoidance. Avoiding the truth. Avoiding your own standards. Avoiding the fact that the relationship, the friendship, the connection, it's not feeding you anymore. It's just familiar. And Taurus doesn't let go of familiar easily. You'd rather stay in something that feels known, even if it's draining, than risk the discomfort of not knowing what comes next. You're not emotionally needy, but you are emotionally rooted. And when those roots grow around someone, it takes a lot to unearth them. Even when the red flags are there. Even when your gut's been whispering that something's off. Even when the version of you that trusted too soon is now quietly building walls. You don't like to talk about your needs unless you feel absolutely safe. You test people before you trust them. You observe them in silence. You wait to see how they handle your quiet, your absence, your tension. And if they show up wrong, you don't always confront it. You just start detaching, emotionally, energetically. You do it slow, but when it's done, it's done. This is how you sabotage love. You carry too much. You wait too long. You protect the peace of others before protecting your own. And then when the final straw breaks, you walk away cold. Not because you didn't care, but because you already did everything you could. And when Taurus gives everything and still feels unsafe, you shut it down. No explosions. Just silence. And most people don't even realize they lost you until it's too late. But here's the truth. Deep down, you don't just want consistency. You want safety. You want a love that doesn't require performance. A love that lets you be slow without being questioned, quiet without being accused, protective without being mistaken for distant. You want to feel chosen, not because you asked for it, but because someone knew your worth before you had to prove it. You need someone who understands that your silence isn't indifference, that your routines aren't boring, they're sacred, that when you commit, you don't play, and that when you finally open up, it's because you've felt everything first. That's where your evolution begins. When you stop giving your energy to people who can't match your emotional loyalty. When you stop calling comfort love just because it's predictable. When you finally realize that real safety doesn't require you to shrink. It lets you expand. You begin healing when you give yourself permission to release what no longer supports your softness. When you stop guarding your heart so tightly that you forget how to let anything good in. When you finally realize that the right people won't rush your pace. They'll respect your rhythm. And they won't just meet your effort. They'll match your energy. Time moves differently for you. You don't chase the future. You don't rush into the unknown. You move when it feels right, when it's real, when the ground underneath you feels strong enough to hold your next step. That's why timing, real timing, matters so much for a Taurus. Because if you move too early, you feel off. And if you move too late, you carry weight that was never meant to stay. The key is knowing when you're in a season of holding on, and when you're being asked to let go. That's where the 9-year personal cycle comes in. Every year has a purpose. And for someone like you, who doesn't jump just because life gets loud, this cycle becomes a map, a rhythm, a way to make sense of the energy you feel, even when your mind hasn't caught up yet. Let's calculate. Take your birth month and day and add it to the current year. For example, if you were born May 10th, 2006, and it's 2025, 5 plus 1 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5 equals 15 to 1 plus 5 equals 6. You're in a personal year 6. Here's what each year means so you can feel the flow more clearly. Year 1 is the start. Clean energy, new identity, new direction. This is a launch year, but Taurus sometimes resists it. You like to prepare, but if you wait too long in this one, you miss the spark. Year 2 is emotional, slow, grounded in partnership and self-awareness. It tests your ability to let someone meet you without controlling the outcome. A year of deepening, not doing. Year 3 brings expression, creativity, movement. This one challenges your comfort zone because it wants you to speak, show, and risk being seen. You'll feel the pull to step forward even when it's unfamiliar. Year 4 is structure, discipline, routines. You do well here. It wants your effort, not your speed. If you lock in, it builds your legacy. If you resist, it drags. Year 5 is change, momentum. This is a tough one for you. Everything feels in flux, but that's on purpose. You're being asked to shift, not stabilize. To trust that movement won't break you. Year 6 is alignment, decisions. Relationships get tested. You're asked to get clear about your commitments to yourself, your home, your heart. This is your emotional maturity year. Year 7 is stillness, spirit. It's not loud, it's reflective. You're asked to go inward here. Taurus fights it sometimes, but if you surrender, this year changes your entire perspective. Year 8 is power, leadership, results. It brings money, pressure, responsibility. You have to decide what success really means for you, not what the world thinks it should look like. Year 9 is release, endings. You're closing something major here, not because it failed, but because it's complete. The people, patterns, and comfort zones that held you in the last cycle, they don't belong in the next. Then it all resets. Back to year 1, new energy, sharper vision. So if 2025 is your personal year 6, you're being asked to commit, not just to people, but to truth. What relationships are real? What emotional routines are helping you? Which ones are just habits keeping you from growth? You're building something real this year, and real takes choice. Not guessing, not waiting for others to show you. You choose, you align, you lead. If you're in year 5 right now, everything's shifting. The ground will feel unstable, but that doesn't mean you're falling. It means you're growing. You're being asked to trust the pivot, not resist it. You don't need all the answers, just the courage to move with the energy instead of digging your heels in. If you're in year 7, don't fight the quiet. This year is meant to be slower. It's meant to show you things through reflection, not action. If you rush through it, you'll miss the insight that's meant to change you from the inside out. And if you're in year 9, let go. Stop holding on just because it's been around a long time. Familiar isn't the same as aligned. You're shedding right now. And whatever stays after this cycle ends, that's what's real. What this year is not for, pretending you're okay just to keep things consistent, avoiding hard choices because you don't want to lose your comfort, refusing growth because it doesn't come with guarantees. What this year is for, checking in with your values, creating emotional safety, not through control, but through clarity, owning your pace, but also honoring when life is asking for something new. Because Taurus, Timing is your gift. You don't need to move fast. You just need to move when it's right. And right now, life is asking you to stop just holding it all together and start building what actually holds you. So what happens if you don't evolve? If you keep holding on to things long after they've expired? If you keep protecting routines that are draining you? If you keep calling consistency peace, when really it's just fear dressed up as stability? You'll stay safe, but you won't feel alive. You'll stay in relationships that don't stretch you, jobs that don't grow you, cycles that feel familiar but quietly kill your softness, and the world will keep calling you grounded while you're secretly stuck. You'll keep saying, "I'm fine," when you're tired of being the one who holds it together. You'll keep showing up when you have nothing left to give, because you're scared that if you let go, everything around you will fall apart. But the truth is, you're already falling apart on the inside. Taurus, your strength is real, but it's become your armor. You've learned how to survive, but survival isn't a life. And if you never allow yourself to release the weight, to feel the shift, to trust the change, you'll miss out on the version of you who isn't just stable, but satisfied. Because the version of you that evolves, they don't abandon their peace. They redefine it. They stop pretending stillness means growth. They stop mistaking silence for security. They stop holding their heart hostage just to protect their old life. They begin to move. Not fast, but with intention. They start asking real questions. Who am I when I'm not just trying to be okay? What do I actually want when I stop trying to protect everyone else first? What would life look like if I trusted myself enough to shift? That's the glow-up. It's not loud. It's not chaotic. It's the moment you realize that real safety doesn't come from avoiding change. It comes from knowing that you can handle it. You stop being scared of losing what's familiar. You start craving what's aligned. You stop choosing partners just because they're predictable. You start allowing people in who see you, not just for your loyalty, but for your layered, emotional, guarded soul that's been waiting to exhale. You stop shrinking, stop over-explaining, stop moving through life like you're always on edge, always one moment away from the rug being pulled again. You begin living on your terms, at your pace, in your truth. And the world doesn't crumble when you change. The people who were never meant for the evolved you, they fall away. But the ones who were waiting for your real energy, they show up calm, software steady, just like you, because that's the truth. Your softness isn't weakness. Your slowness isn't fear. Your stability isn't control. It's your power when it comes from choice, not from fear, not from survival, not from being too tired to try again. You're a Taurus, and you were never meant to just hold it down. You were meant to rise from stillness, from strength, from soul. Not because someone told you to, but because one day you finally decided you deserve more than fine. You deserve full,